Let's get this shit started.
This is the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, Nick Anderson.
What is up, Dynasty Degenerates? This is your host, Nick Anderson, with the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast, or as you all know it, the Triple DFFP. And today, we're going to be doing some listener questions, We put out a poll on Twitter, and we got a bunch of questions about some trades that we had, so we're going to be doing a trade talk segment. So, let's just jump. Actually, first off, we got to go over some of the recent news that we've had today. Travis Kelce signed a new extension with the Kansas City Chiefs. Go Chiefs Kingdom. Hell yeah. It doesn't move the needle much on Kelce. I think that we all understand that he was, a top 1 or 2 dynasty tight end, and he will continue to be a top 1 or 2 dynasty tight end for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, my dumbass just traded him away in a terrible trade to acquire Ryan and Tannehill in a 2 QB league. But I'm all in on Ryan Tannehill. I told you guys that I was all in on Ryan Tannehill, and I wanted to be a man of my word and acquire him in my leagues. Doing it for you guys, all right? But then also we had Kittle get an extension today. So, a lot of news coming out. A lot of big things moving. So, 1 and 2 dynasty tight ends. Honestly, I still have Kittle above Kelce. Unfortunately, I know it hurts my heart as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but Kittle's got the youth, so I got to go with that. Both signed big extensions. Are going to be top 2 tight ends for the rest of the foreseeable future. Let's move on to our trade talk segment, though. So the first one that we got coming at us today is from @Paul_Ryan15. So he is in a 12-team PPR dynasty league, 1 QB multi-flex, okay? And so he is asking us right now, Aaron Jones or CeeDee Lamb, which is an interesting question. I think it's so interesting because, Aaron Jones is coming off an absolutely insane 2019 season. He's not the most impressive in the metrics department. He has a 4.56 40. He's got a great burst score. He's in the 86th percentile with that and an 89th percentile on the agility score. He's 5'9", 208 pounds. But last season, he really burst onto the scene. And he actually had productive seasons when he got the opportunity the years before. But last year, he had 1,084 rushing yards, 474 receiving yards on 49 receptions. He had 5 drops, which is number 9, but he had 19 total touchdowns, and that's what his entire game was predicated off last year, was 19. You guys heard it right, total touchdowns. It's number 1 in the league. And the thing about Aaron Jones is, do I think that he's still going to be productive in 2020? Yes, I do, because Aaron Jones has shown that he's an elite running back in the NFL, no questions asked. But you've got a 250-pound, not my cup of tea, A.J. Dillon coming into Lambeau Field, okay? And they're going to use him in red zone situations. They didn't draft somebody to be a Derrick Henry 2.0 and then not use them in the red zone. They just didn't do it. Like I said, I don't like A.J. Dillon. I'd ask him to come help me move furniture, but I wouldn't ask him to help me move a pile. Okay. I like Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is a dynamic running back in the NFL. And even if he doesn't get a contract next year, I think he will still find success in a different organization because of his skill set. Just like I talked about with Alvin Kamara, with his skill set, with his slasher mentality, with his receiving chops that he has, with his nose for the end zone, just like Aaron Jones has. I think that they could fit in any offense in the NFL, even as a complementary role. Like a 2A to a Derrick Henry, a 2A to a Leonard Fournette, something like that. They could still find production. Okay, but Aaron Jones is going to have a severe reduction in touchdowns next season. I was talking to somebody the other day talking about the number of touchdowns. A person who scored 15 touchdowns in the NFL has never scored, except for one time, more than 10 touchdowns the next season. So, we are looking at statistical probability that Aaron Jones is going to take a big dive in touchdowns in 2020. So then we got to look at his competition in this trade. We look over to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's an incoming rookie, okay? He's unproven for the most part for us. Even though what I saw from him in college, just told me everything that I need to know. If you saw that sideline catch, that windmill sideline catch, CeeDee Lamb's the guy. I love him. He's incredible. You saw him in the combine making those crazy grabs when they were doing the corner drills for the end zone. He was just showing off for the cameras, but he can show off like that because he's that good. So, I mean, he goes to a Dallas Cowboys offense, which finds himself in a cluttered backfield. I mean, a cluttered receiving core. We've got Amari Cooper out there who, rightfully so, has had some fall off games. It's been the story of his career. You know, he's shown up, then he's shown out, and then he's fallen off, and then he'll come back again. We've got Michael Gallup, who is a major value in 2020, in my opinion. He's really turned into a great wide receiver in the NFL who has a rapport with Dak Prescott already, which CeeDee Lamb does not. You have Blake Jarwin, who's supposed to impress from the tight end position. You've got Ezekiel Elliott, who demands targets out of the backfield. So you've got a lot of mouths to feed out there with Dak Prescott slinging the ball to him, and CeeDee Lamb's going to have to find his home in this congested wide receiver core. But I think that he has the talent to be able to do so. So if we're looking at this, if we're looking at, longevity of the position, the advantage goes to CeeDee Lamb. If we're looking at 2020 points, maybe if we're talking redraft, obviously Aaron Jones gets the nod, but we're not talking redraft. We're talking dynasty. So I think that there is a chance that, come 2021, CeeDee Lamb could be the outproducing one of these two. He has the longevity because he's a wide receiver. Amari Cooper has no guaranteed money after 2021. Dak Prescott is inevitably going to get a contract out there in Dallas, so he will be the quarterback slinging the rock to these players moving forward. So when I'm looking at this, I think that I might be inclined to take the trade, CeeDee Lamb for Aaron Jones, acquiring CD. But I think that you might be able to get more for Aaron Jones at this point. I think that you could get CD plus some picks. CD plus some picks on that. And that's the avenue that I would be looking right now. I don't know if I would necessarily just be happy with getting that value, because you could still turn Aaron Jones to an Aaron Jones truther somewhere, and you could get better value for it. There are people out there that still, myself included, thinks that A.J. Dillon just isn't the fucking truth. And so when you're starting to talk about these trades, you can get more for Aaron Jones than that. So yeah, when talking about the two, I'm always a big proponent of running back over wide receiver. It's so hard to acquire running back talent in the NFL, and wide receiver is so deep. But CeeDee Lamb is a transcendental talent. I am really impressed with what I saw from him coming out of college. I'm really impressed with the catches that I've seen in the combine drills. Everything about him tells me that he's going to be a great fit in Dallas. And that's not even talking about the fact that he's wearing number 88. He is the anointed one in Dallas. They want him to succeed. He is the next in a long line of amazing wide receivers under, the ownership of Jerry Jones. And so when looking at Aaron Jones versus CeeDee Lamb, I would personally take CeeDee Lamb for Aaron Jones. But I think that you can get more for Jones right now. I think that you can play off of the hype of last season, and you can capitalize on that. So if it were me, I would be trying to get picks in there. I'd be trying to get some, like a third, maybe a second in there to try and sweeten the pot and really make it worth my while. But if brass tacks, down to it, and I need a wide receiver and I'm stacked at running back, or even I'm just trying to build for the future and I know that I'm not going to be able to capitalize on these plays for the next 2 years, CeeDee Lamb's my guy. So, Paul Ryan 15, if you're making the choice between Jones and CeeDee Lamb, go for CD, but try and get some picks in there too. So let's go on to our next viewer trade question. It comes from @5widefootball. And this is more, so he's talking about a wide variety. Apparently, people have been coming at him left and right, trying to get this player, and he wants to know what he should do with it. So it is a redraft value keeper league. So I don't exactly understand what value keeper league is, but I'm thinking that it's something like the keeper leagues that I'm in, where you get to keep them for maybe a round ahead of where you drafted them. And I love those kind of keeper leagues. They're my favorite. They're my personal favorite because you can really capitalize on value. I've gotten fucked on it a lot because I've had some guys get some really good picks. I had one guy that stacked Gurley and Alvin Kamara for a couple years there for just insanely low picks, like a 7th and an 8th. It was nuts. But so this guy is looking. He has Kenyon Drake in this league. I don't know what round he got to keep him for, but he's had offers on the table trading Drake for David Johnson or Hunter Henry or Tariq Cohen, Devontae Parker, or Mark Ingram. Okay. And while I am cautiously optimistic about Kenyon Drake's potential in Arizona, He trumps every single one of those players, and almost without question. There's not much thought that even needs to go into it. I mean, Kenyon Drake's competition are people that I like, I have high hopes for, but it's nobody that is really going to be an immediate threat to him right now. I mean, Chase Edmonds, Eno Benjamin, guys that I really, really like out there, but they're not going to pilfer targets from him. You look at a guy like David Johnson. Who knows what's going on with David Johnson in 2020? I mean, we saw him look like a shell of himself in 19. So I'm not convinced that he's going to go to Houston and be able to turn this all around. Now, he is up there in the top half of starting running backs for me. I mean, not top half, but he's a lower mid-tier running back for me in redraft leagues. But I'm just not impressed with him. Kenyon Drake showed out last season. And yes, there was a little bit of inconsistency in his showing when he went to Arizona. But, if you're talking David Johnson or Kenyon Drake all day. Not even a question. So then let's look at Hunter Henry. No. Not convinced Hunter Henry's going to do anything. Yes, Tyrod Taylor is in town. Hold on, I need a drink. Yes, Tyrod Taylor is in town. Yes, Tyrod is the guy who people like to forget made Charles Clay relevant, okay? Yes, that's the same guy. So am I a little bit hopeful about Hunter Henry's prospects? Yes. Do I think that Hunter Henry is a very skilled tight end? Yes, I also think that as well. But do I think that he is even close to worth Kenyon Drake's value? No, absolutely not. Not even close. Get that out of my face. Get it off the table. No, thank you. So let's go on to the next one, Tarik Cohen. Tarik Cohen's one of those guys that I actually like a lot. I think he is a huge steal in the later rounds, okay? He does have to compete with David Montgomery, who got near 250 carries last year, but we saw David Montgomery was wildly inefficient with them. I'm excited about David Montgomery's 2020 upside, but I think that Tarik Cohen is still going to have a lot of value in that offense. So, I mean, he is probably he's not the closest because David Johnson is definitely the closest of these guys that we've talked about so far. But I really like Tarik Cohen. He's one of the guys that I like the most, preference-wise, not pick-wise. But so, I mean, Tarik Cohen last season, he had 79 receptions, which is number 4. 79 receptions. And I don't see that going away. It's not like they made any major additions to the offense that's going to change that. It's not like David Montgomery is suddenly going to be a pass-catching back. So Tarik Cohen still has the reception upside. And we were looking at that. Was this a PPR league? I can't remember. He didn't say one way or another. It wouldn't change the needle for me because Kenyon Drake is a great receiving back as well. But Tarik Cohen does have a lot of upside out there, especially for the pick that he has. So, I mean, if we're looking at Kenyon Drake for X pick and Tarik Cohen for Y pick, and Cohen is just an absolute steal of a value, maybe you go that way. I'm not 100% sure. But as a straight-up trade for trade, Kenyon Drake for Tarik Cohen, get it on my face, not interested. So then we move on to Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker had a great tail end of the season last year with the Dolphins. I mean, he showed up, showed out. He showed that Adam Gase was the thing that was holding him back. But this coming season, he's going to have Mike Gesicki there, who has really stepped into his own. He's going to have a healthy Preston Williams there. So yes, I'm excited about Devontae Parker, but not even close to as excited as I am about Kenyon Drake. If it comes down to a good running back and a good wide receiver, I'm always going to go the running back because running back is always at a premium. You always need more running backs. You can always get wide receivers off the waiver wire. So, I mean, that's just where it is. Waiver wire for wide receivers, running backs are where it's at. So then we look at the last option that we have on here for 5-wide football, and it's Mark Ingram. And, if we're talking 2019, probably go Ingram over Kenyon Drake, But Mark Ingram's got a young buck in town in J.K. Dobbins, and I've talked about him on here in exhaust. I am very, very excited about J.K. Dobbins. He was a guy that I was fading at first before he got selected by the Ravens, and somehow his selection with the Ravens just changed my entire mentality on the kid. There's a grit. There's, a nastiness, a dog mentality that comes with Ravens running backs. And I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to fit right into that long lineage. And, Mark Ingram's going to be the number 1 this season. I don't think that J.K. Dobbins is going to come in and take away carries from Big Truss, all right? Not in Beanmore. He's not going to take the carries away from Big Truss. But what I do think that he's going to do is be a big enough thorn in Big Truss's side that he's not going to have the season that Kenyon Drake is going to have. Like I said, J.K. Dobbins, much more competition than Eno Benjamin or Chase Edmonds. All right. So when it comes to Mark Ingram or Kenyon Drake, who do I think is the more talented running back? Mark Ingram. All right. But who do I think is going to have the most productive 2020 season? Kenyon Drake. Now, all that being said, I do think that Kenyon Drake's outlook for 2020 is a little bit over exaggerated. I know that he was productive last season, but it was inconsistent. And he also did a lot in the receiving game. And so we're also looking at a new landscape in Arizona. We're looking at an Arizona Cardinals offense that now has DeAndre Hopkins. They also have Christian Kirk coming into his own. You know, you've got other players that are wanting to be fed, like aging Larry Fitzgerald. Maybe they get Andy Isabella out on the field. You know, you got Chase Edmonds out there who's going to pilfer stuff. You got Eno Benjamin, who knows what he's doing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire light out there. So, I mean, Kenyon Drake is a great player. I think he's going to have a good 2020 season, but I would be cautiously optimistic with his upside in Arizona. So, when we're looking at Kenyon Drake or the field, Kenyon Drake all the way, 5-wide football. So now let's move on to at Fantasy Mike BBF. And I almost hesitate to give him any advice because Mike and I are playing against each other in the Scott Fish Bowl, and it's gotten a little nasty, you know? We started talking to each other, and even though we like each other, I mean, I'm just going to crush him, and it's embarrassing, and I know that he's upset about it. He's super angry, but, you know, Mike, get over it, dude. You're just going to lose. It's okay. Scott Fish Bowl champion here. Just get used to it. Get ready for it, all right? But he's talking about a half-point Superflex Dynasty League. Don't know how many teams are in it. So that would make a little bit of a difference because we're going to be talking about picks in here. So that makes a little bit of variance in the picks. But right now he's saying straight up Kareem Hunt and a 21-second for DeAndre Swift. And of the trades that we're going to talk today, this is one of those ones that's super, super tough for me because I understand that people are down on Swift in Detroit. I know that people say that Kerryon Johnson isn't just going to go away. You know, they had similar draft capital, DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson. But like the last episode that we talked about, where we talked about the same but different, the draft capital of DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson is the same but different. DeAndre Swift to Kerryon Johnson is different. All right, man. DeAndre Swift is just one of those guys. When I was rating out rookies for the pre-draft process, DeAndre Swift was my number one for a long time. Jonathan Taylor eventually usurped him. But, I mean, it is so tight between DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor. I feel like we've gotten this in our head because we saw Swift go to Detroit that, you know, he's not this elite running back that was up there competing with Jonathan Taylor, past him in numerous fantasy analysts' eyes, you know? So, but he was. I mean, he was there. He still is there. DeAndre Swift is electric. You know, he's quick. He's explosive. He has a great jump cut. His hands are exceptional. And, I mean, he's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. He's got a frame to be able to get bigger. I don't know if you've seen that guy's dad, but god damn, that dude is a brick shit house. And if DeAndre Swift is going to get anything like his pappy, holy shit, watch out because he is going to be a fucking monster. All right. So then we're looking at the other side of this. And so I'm just saying, I think that DeAndre Swift is going to run away with the job this year. I know that Patricia comes from a Belichickian coaching tree, so it might lean one towards thinking that he is going to do a committee backfield with DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson. But sometimes players are just that good that coaches have to break their tendencies, that they can't give other players the targets that they would like to because the number one is just that fucking good. And I think DeAndre Swift has that in his range of outcomes. But then we look at the other side, and we will talk about a player that's that good. Kareem Hunt is that good, guys. Nick Chubb is one of the most pure running backs in the NFL. I mean, he is in the conversation for best pure runner in the NFL. And this is an NFL that we have Derrick Henrys, that we have Saquon Barkley's, that we have Ezekiel Elliott's. And Nick Chubb is in the conversation for most pure runner in the NFL. And then Kareem Hunt comes in after missing 8 games in the middle of a season and steals carries from him. That in and of itself is a testament to Kareem Hunt's insane skill, guys. He is that good. He has like a 81.7% catch rate over the course of his career. The guy's got hands. Yes, his ADOT is super low on that, so that has an effect on all of it. But, you know, Kareem Hunt, I don't think that he's had below a 4.5 yards per carry in his career. I'll check that out real quick. But, I mean, Hunt is one of those guys that because he's had so many off-field problems, we've gotten, a little bit nervous about him because he's had so many off-field problems because we haven't gotten to see him ball out like we saw him do in Kansas City. But don't ever forget what he did in Kansas City. Don't forget the way he popped off of the page. Don't forget the fact that he came in and stole carries from Nick Chubb. And so we were talking about his yards per attempt. Yes, he did dip below in 2019, but his career is 4.7 yards per attempt. I mean, his 2017 season in Kansas City, he had 272 rushes for 1,327 yards, 8 TDs, and accompanied that with 53 receptions, 455 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. The guy is electric. He is incredible. But when we're looking at this, he's still stuck behind Nick Chubb. And I can't guarantee you that he's going to leave the Browns in 2021. I can't guarantee that because 2021 is going to be such a congested free agency class. And I do think that Kareem Hunt's negatives, the pitfalls that he's had in his career are going to lend to him being a preferable target in free agency because he will have a reduced price on his head because he hasn't had the ability to be a number one bell cow. He hasn't had a spotless reputation like a lot of these free agents will have had. And so, he might be the trade or the acquisition target for a lot of these teams that don't have the salary cap to pay somebody like a Dalvin Cook who might not get signed. But I also can't guarantee that he's going to leave the Browns in 2021. And as long as he is seated behind Nick Chubb, he will never see the production that you want to. And a 21 second doesn't change that for me. A 21 second is a great pick. I'm super excited about it. I've actually been coming around to the idea that acquiring 21 picks might be the savvy move for the intelligent dynasty player, okay? And my theory behind that is that there are holdouts. The Pac-10 or Pac-12 isn't playing this season. And so, I mean, a lot of these, we're talking about not seeing a ton of NCAA players play this season. And then we are going to see some play. And so the players that are going to show up that might be, a second, third tier player are going to get jettisoned to the top even by teams, by draft analysts, all of those things, because we see them make these errors every year. But it's going to be you who has looked at the Devy rankings, who has seen their, 19, 18 production and knows what these guys are about and don't need to see them on the field in 2020. And remembering that and picking accordingly is what's going to save you the day and give you everything that you could want and more in the later picks. Okay. So a 21 second could be a super valuable pick for you. And a company and acquiring Kareem Hunt could be super valuable to you if he goes somewhere else in 2021, but I just don't like the dart throw and the unknown nature of the future of Kareem Hunt here. I know what I'm getting in DeAndre Swift. No, he hasn't played it down yet, but I know what I saw on film. I know what I see when I watch him. The guy is electric. He is incredible. He is sensational. Every word that you can think of in the book. And there is not a guy named Kerryon Johnson in the world. I don't know how many Kerryon Johnsons are on the world, but I can guarantee you that the one in Detroit is the one that's going to try and stop him the most. But there's not a Kerryon Johnson in the world that is going to be able to stop DeAndre Swift's inevitable takeover of the Detroit backfield. So when you're looking at Kareem Hunt in a second or DeAndre Swift, I'm going DeAndre Swift all day and twice on Sunday because I believe in the kid's skill that much, because there's an unknown nature of Kareem Hunt's future, and because a 21 second round pick is a dart throw, in my opinion, in comparison to the guaranteed production you're going to get from Swift. So, Fantasy Mike, I could be sabotaging you right now. Who knows? I haven't even looked at your team to see if this is Scott Fishbowl. Oh, we can't make trades in Scott Fishbowl. What am I thinking? But yeah, so Kareem Hunt in a 21 second. Nah, we're going DeAndre Swift all the way. So DeAndre Swift, lock it up. Half point, Superflex Dynasty League. Superior to Kareem Hunt in a 21 second. So let's move on to our next trade on here. But first, drink break. Thank you. Our next trade on here comes from @officialbudhole. I like that name. That is a good name right there. And this is a PPR Dynasty League. No idea how many teams are in it. But he is asking which side we would prefer, Michael Thomas and Boston Scott, and he has Miles Sanders, okay? 4, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, a 21 late first, and a 21 mid second. Okay. So there's a lot to digest right here. Michael Thomas, best wide receiver in the NFL, number one, easy dynasty wide receiver overall. No questions asked. Boston Scott, very serviceable backup to Miles Sanders. And if you have Miles Sanders, he's a desirable target in Dynasty. Let's see what Boston Scott produced at the end of the season last year. When Miles Sanders wasn't in the game, Boston Scott had some incredible games. But I think that's a product of the offense. I think that's why we're all so excited about Miles Sanders, is because we know that the offense is set up for that. But at the end of the year last year, in game 16, granted it's game 16 of the NFL, so we all know how that works. He had 19 attempts for 54 yards, which is pretty abysmal, but he had 3 fucking touchdowns. He also had 6 targets for 4 receptions and 84 yards. So, I mean, the guy showed up in that game, but probably lackluster defense. But if Miles Sanders goes down, Boston Scott's going to find himself in a very, very fruitful situation that has a ton of upside, okay? But let's look at the other side of this. So we got Michael Thomas and Boston Scott, the number 1 overall wide receiver in Dynasty on anybody's ranking boards. And then Boston Scott, a solid backup to Miles Sanders. For Robert Woods, the perennially underestimated wide receiver, arguably the number 1 in the Rams offense. Terry McLaurin, F1, the number 1 wide receiver in Washington, having the ball thrown to him by presumably Dwayne Haskins, but we'll see how Alex Smith shows up after injury. That's something we all got to keep an eye on here, man. Alex Smith was great before he got injured. I know that it's not a popular opinion because he was such a game manager, but Alex Smith was great before he got injured. And if we're comparing Alex Smith pre-injury to Dwayne Haskins 2019, I'm taking Alex Smith pre-injury all day. Now, we don't know if he lost a step or anything, but I digress. All right, so the number 1 in Washington. Then we look at a 21 late first and a 21 mid second. So I think that this is all team dependent right here for me, because I don't think that it's a bad trade. I think that the value is definitely there, okay? But it all depends on what you need in a team. If you just need one player to push you over the edge to be able to win a championship, I'm not against selling the farm to be able to get that ship. That's what we're playing for here. We're all playing for a championship. Now, I'm not sure. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I'm not sure if 21's the year that you sell out, because you could sell out for a fucking season that's not even going to happen. So you just gave up the future of your team to win a ship in a season that's not even going to, come to a head. But in normal seasons, under normal circumstances, I understand selling the farm to be able to win a ship. That's what we're all here for. But if your team, if you're looking to rebuild, if you're looking to fortify, if you're looking for depth, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, a 21 late first and a 21 mid second it's a pretty good steal for me. And I think that if I were in this situation and not looking to win a ship right out the gate, just need that one player to be able to push me over the edge. If I'm not looking for that one player to push me over the edge, then I'm taking Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, a 21 late first and a 21 mid second. Okay, I'm taking the package because I think that the value's there. Robert Woods is arguably the number 1 in the Rams offense. Terry McLaurin is handedly the number 1 in the Washington offense. A 21 late first, like I said, there's going to be value in 21 picks. Could be a great player right there. I haven't done my rankings. I haven't done mock drafts for, it's not even worth anything not knowing where they're going, but for the Devy players that are coming in 21. But, there's a lot of talent in that fucking draft. A 21 mid-second, a great dart throw right there. So a lot of ability to be able to build up your team for the future while sacrificing the number 1 wide receiver and a backup. So I think that I would go with the package if I wasn't absolutely right about to cross the finish line on a championship team. So who was that that came in? That was Budhole, wasn't it? Yeah, add official Budhole. If I'm looking at this, if Triple D's looking at this and he's looking at his team, I'm going Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, a first and a second right there. That's my take on it. So let's move on to our next trade question, and it comes in from at Coletastic in a 20. And this one is crazy, you guys. This is nuts. I've never been in a league like this. Okay, so Coletastic, I'm letting you know right now, I've never been in this kind of a league. So I can't tell you one way or another, okay? But I can't tell you one way or another. I wouldn't be talking about it. But I've never actually been in a copy league, okay? But this is a 20-team PPR, 1/4 point per carry, multiple copies league, all right? And so he is asking if we would trade Alvin Kamara for Miles Sanders and Ronald Jones. So the caveat on this is that Ronald Jones would be necessary to be his last flex spot on his team. So he's relying on Jones to be a flex spot in his lineup. So apparently he needs a he needs a little depth coming into this, but also wants to maintain a running back 1 and try and get a high-end running back 3 for his flex spot, okay? So Alvin Kamara for Miles Sanders. Now let's break this down. Alvin Kamara doesn't have a contract yet, okay? I think that he's probably going to get a contract, but he doesn't have one yet. Miles Sanders he has stability in Philadelphia. We know where he's going to be. He's got a Boston Scott nipping at his heels, who is not the craziest amount of competition. Then we look at Rojo in the package as well. Now, I think that Rojo is going to have a significantly tougher road to hoe than any of the players that we talked about before because Keyshawn Vaughn is no joke. You know, if you've heard me talk, you know how big of a fan I am of Keyshawn Vaughn. But I still think that Rojo showed enough at the end of 2019 that he's going to have a prosperous 2020. It's just going to be, a mid running back 3 somewhere around there. He's not going to blow up and pop off on the scene because he hasn't done it yet. He's had 2 years to do it and he hasn't done it. Okay. Keyshawn Vaughn is going to be competition there. Rojo 3 ceiling, mid-tier running back 3. Okay. But you combine that with a Miles Sanders who in a PPR league, I think, is easily a running back 1. No question about it in my mind. We got the quarter points per carry, but I think that Alvin Kamara and Miles Sanders are probably going to be pretty comparable in carries there. So when we're looking at this, I mean, if you need that flex option, if you are that thin that you need depth there, then I might be inclined to do this trade. Even though I do have Alvin Kamara higher than Miles Sanders by quite a few spots, probably about 4 or 5 spots in my rankings. I think that if that flex spot is going to be the thing that helps you, and especially in a 20-team league, I understand that they have copies, but I can imagine that these rosters get really, really thin. So players like a Ronald Jones would start to become much more valuable in a starting lineup. And so if we're looking at an Alvin Kamara or a Miles Sanders, obviously you take Alvin Kamara every day. But in a 20-team league, where things are getting thin, even though we have multiple copies, quarter point per carry, PPR, I think Rojo is going to be the thing that tips it over the edge for me. I think I take the Miles Sanders and Rojo stack. I know it's not going to be popular because Rojo isn't a sexy name on fantasy Twitter, but I do think that he's going to be prosperous enough, and especially in a huge fucking league like this, that I think that he could be a major benefit to your team in a flex spot. So Coley Tastic, when we're looking at this, AK for Miles Sanders and Rojo, I'm taking the package there. I'm taking Miles Sanders and Rojo, and I'm taking it for the depth, and I'm taking it for the win. So let's move on to our next trade. We've got at FFB Russ, and he is asking us, hit that shit. He is asking us, Aaron Jones, we didn't get any context on the league, any context on the number of teams in the league. So we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants right now. Let's assume half point. So I always assume half point. Let's just do that. So we've got Aaron Jones and Cam Akers for J.K. Dobbins and Chris Carson. Aaron Jones and Cam Akers for J.K. Dobbins and Chris Carson. So let's start with the Dobbins and Carson side. I've already told you how much I love J.K. Dobbins. He's got an established vet in big trust in front of him. But I think that he is going to have a ton of potential after Mark Ingram inevitably leaves the Ravens offense. High-scoring offense. High-scoring offense. I think they're going to have a little bit of regression in 2020, but still a high-scoring offense that gets him in the position to be able to score, which means everything in fantasy football. Touchdowns are everything, Opportunity is everything. So J.K. Dobbins has a great future moving forward. Chris Carson, been my guy, been one of my ride or dies in fantasy football, guys. I fucked up one season and spent my entire fab budget on him on accident, and they offered me the option of changing my team name to be able to get my fab back, and I told them they could go fuck themselves, and I kept Chris Carson, and it has paid dividends since, all right? I mean, it has paid handedly. Never changed my name either. is the violator, baby. But so when we're looking at the combo of J.K. Dobbins and Chris Carson's coming off of a hip injury. You know, he's going into an offense where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's no alpha there. Chris Carson has been the alpha, but if we can get Rashad Penny back, who knows? Rashad Penny has been very productive when he's gotten the ball in his hands. He just hasn't gotten the ball in his hands that much because he can't stay healthy. You know, we've also got DJ Dallas out there, and I'm super excited about DJ Dallas. I think that he's going to be a great player. I think he's got a lot of potential. So, I mean, when we're looking at Chris Carson, I'm not certain about his future. And he's one of those guys where I was talking about an Aaron Jones. If he goes somewhere in 2021, I think that he could be prosperous. I'm not convinced that Chris Carson has that in his wheelhouse. I'm not convinced that if he goes to any other offense, that he's going to be able to have the level of production that he's had in Seattle. He is a one-trick pony. He is a banger. And while he does it well, that's all he brings to the table, So Chris Carson's future after his time with Seattle worries me. So we look at the other side of this matchup. We've got Aaron Jones and Cam Akers, guys. Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. So when we're looking at this, Aaron Jones, we've already talked about him. We've talked about his slasher mentality, how he was buoyed by 19 total touchdowns in 2019, which is huge. It's going to come down to earth. It's going to regress. All right. But he also has the hands. He's got the elusiveness. He's got the vision. He's got the looks. Everything that you want in a running back, Aaron Jones has. And so I think that he has the ability to be able to transition to another team and be productive. So, I mean, I think that gives Aaron Jones the nod on Chris Carson. Yeah, I mean, not to mention that he outproduced him tenfold last season. But then we look at Cam Akers versus J.K. Dobbins in this, okay? Cam Akers finds himself in a Rams offense, okay? A Sean McVay run offense that has been very, very prosperous for the running back position in the past. Todd Gurley has had great seasons with them, And I think that they're going to have a little return to form this season. I don't think that that Jared Goff is going to have the kind of season that he did last year. I think he's going to have a return to form to the 2018 season. Cooper Kupp's going to step it up. Robert Woods is going to step it up. Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett. I'm just joking. I like both of those guys, actually. I think it's going to be a good competition to watch this year. But I think all of that's going to play into the factor of Cam Akers, who does have to compete with the Darrell Henderson, He does have to compete with a couple other, a congested backfield. But Cam Akers is the most raw talent with a ton of potential in this draft class. Now, he fell below, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins in my pre-draft rankings, but he was my number 4, man. The guy is explosive. He's electric. He's hyper athletic, and he's got a ton of potential. It's just going to be if he can refine it in the NFL. And I think him going to a coach like Sean McVay is great for him because he is going to have the ability to be able to refine that and work underneath a very intellectual coach and learn and grow and all of those things. So when we're looking at Aaron Jones and Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins and Chris Carson, while J.K. takes Cam every day, Aaron Jones is leaps and bounds better than Chris Carson. So I'm taking the value of the two in Aaron Jones and Cam Akers over J.K. Dobbins and Chris Carson. So at FFB Russ, if you're staring down the barrel of this trade, Aaron Jones and Cam Akers all day, bud. FFB Russ. We're going Aaron Jones and Cam Akers all day long on this because I like the value of the two combined. J.K. Dobbins is the best player, in my opinion, in this grouping, but Chris Carson is the worst. So we're looking at, the highest upside of the two players combined, which is Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. So let's move on to our next trade from at Dynasty Masters. It's a Superflex Dynasty League, all right? And so we're talking about Superflex here. So remember, we're taking that into consideration when we're talking about quarterback values. But so we've got Julio and Mitch Trubisky for DJ Chark and Dwayne Haskins. Julio Jones and Mitch Trubisky for DJ Chark and Dwayne Haskins. It's an interesting trade, guys, because obviously Julio is a better, more productive wide receiver than DJ Chark today. Today, he is a more productive, better wide receiver than DJ Chark, but DJ Chark has the age on him, man. DJ Chark, I think, is 23 years old. Not 100% sure about that. I'll look it up right now. DJ Chark is 23 years old. I was right because I'm always right, guys. You're learning that. Come on. But so, I mean, at 23 years old, a little uncertainty about the quarterback position moving forward. We don't know if it's going to be Gardner Minshew in 2021 or if they're just going to tank for Trevor, you know? But DJ Chark has shown up, shown out, shown the ability to be able to be a top tier wide receiver in the NFL. Okay. So then let's look at the quarterback comparison that we've got going on. We've got Mitch Trubisky versus Dwayne Haskins, which I think is super close, you know? I mean, Mitch obviously has Big Dick Nick in town. And I think that Nick Foles is probably going to take the job away from Mitch. But I also think that Mitch is going to get the job, the opportunity to be a quarterback in the NFL somewhere else down the line. So I think that we're going to see him at a starting position. And he's been very productive for fantasy football purposes down the line. You know, he's had great games, better games than Dwayne Haskins has ever seen in his career. But Dwayne Haskins has the stability right now with having to fight off, you know, a recovering Alex Smith, who we don't know if he's lost a step. You know, I talked about it earlier. You know, pre-injury Alex Smith is better than current Dwayne Haskins, but post-injury Alex Smith is an enigma. So when we're looking at this trade right here, Julio and Mitch for Chark and Haskins, well, I love Julio, you know. He's old. He's getting older, and Father Time finds us all. And it's eventually going to come for Julio, and it's going to come for him exponentially faster than a 23-year-old DJ Chark. Than a DJ Chark, you know, who popped off the page last season. A DJ Chark who, see what his stats were, who in 2019 had 73 receptions for 1,008 yards, you know, 8 touchdowns. He had 118 targets last season, you know, 1,008 yards compared to what Julio did. You know, Julio had a better season, but he had the 8 touchdowns, you know. DJ Chark had the 8 touchdowns. And so I think that when we're looking at that trade, I'm going Dwayne Haskins and DJ Chark on that. For the age, you know, for the stability of Haskins over Mitch Trubisky, for all of those things, I'm taking the DJ Chark and Dwayne Haskins side of that trade, Dynasty Masters. In the Superflex Dynasty League, I'm taking DJ Chark and Dwayne Haskins over Julio and Mitch Trubisky. Then he also asked about a redraft league that he has. Dynasty Masters asked about a redraft league that he is in, and he was asking Ezekiel Elliott and George Kittle. And I'm assuming that this is a Superflex Dynasty. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's redraft, so never mind. But Ezekiel Elliott and George Kittle for Alvin Kamara and David Johnson. And guys, this isn't even close for me. I'm taking Elliott and Kittle all day here. Elliott's over Kamara for me. Kittle's over David Johnson. So we're not even going to do a ton of analysis on this. Kittle just got paid because he's a baller. Ezekiel Elliott is an absolute boss. He is better than Alvin Kamara in every single way of the game except maybe receiving. But, you know, Ezekiel Elliott and George Kittle over Kamara and David Johnson in redraft every single day, twice on Sunday. No questions asked. Thank you, Dynasty Masters, for the question. Moving on. All right, so we're going to get into some more conceptual questions here down the line, okay? These ones aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily player-for-player trades, but they're talking about what should I do with this guy? So we've got at Hard Nuke Life asking us, what do I do with Marvin Jones? All right, and that's a question that I've been finding myself in a lot because I love Marvin Jones. I love a healthy Matt Stafford. I love what those two have been able to produce together throughout their career. Matt Stafford is a boss, and don't you let anybody ever forget that, okay? Matt Stafford has a chubby-ass face, but he is a boss, and don't let anybody forget that. And Marvin Jones has had a hyper-productive career with him. So when we're looking at Marvin Jones in redraft, Marvin Jones is a buy at his ADP every single time. And you can get Marvin Jones down around like I mean, I'm not even looking at ADPs right now, but you can get him in like the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round, you know? You can get him down there as your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, 4, 5, and that is insane value for a guy who could produce as a wide receiver 2. He's had a wide receiver 1 year. He's had a wide receiver 1 year with Matthew Stafford before. They have that chemistry, that ability. So, I mean, he's had those years. He has the ability. I'm not projecting him for it, but he has the ability to produce as a wide receiver 2 this season if all things go accordingly. So, as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, I'm taking him all day in redraft. In Dynasty, he's a hold. You're never going to get the value for a 31-year-old wide receiver that you want in Marvin Jones. but you're also going to have to pay too much to acquire him because people like me are talking about him like this. So he's a hold right now. He's not a trade acquisition. He's not a sell. You just hold on to him and let him take you to the promised land. Now, if you're in a complete teardown rebuild, get rid of him and get rid of him for whatever you can, because rebuilds don't go half-assed. If you're going to rebuild your team, you tear it down to the studs and then you build it back up. So you get rid of all the value that you can. But if you're not in a rebuild, if you're not in a crazy rebuild, you hold on to him and let him take you to the ship. Hard nuke life. That's what you do with Marvin Jones. All right? That's what you do with Marvin Jones. So let's move on to another conceptual question here from at AMR Gabar. AMR Gabar. All right. So what is Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's value? Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's value in 2021 going to be? So after the 2020 season is said and done, everything is set in stone. We've seen the carries have been carried. The receptions have been received. The touchdowns have been touched. What is Clyde's value going to be in 21? And, my opinion of it is it's going to be a lot of the same. It all depends on what you value him as right now. I've seen people have him up as, the dynasty RB6, and I don't see it jumping that. There's no way in my mind that Clyde will, unless something catastrophic happens this year, there's no way that Clyde's going to jump Christian McCaffrey. There's no way that Clyde's going to jump Ezekiel Elliott. There's no way that he's going to jump Saquon Barkley. If Alvin Kamara has a season like he should, there's no way he's going to jump Alvin Kamara. If Dalvin Cook has a season like he should, there's no way that he's going to jump Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to find himself high-end running back 6 in the NFL. That is the high end of what Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's value is going to be in 2021. And I honestly think that it's probably going to be quite a bit lower than that. I think that I'm super excited about Clyde. You guys know that I'm a Chiefs fan through and through. I got my wedding ring that's a fucking Chiefs wedding ring. All of that shit. I bleed red and gold. But I am concerned that we have such hype for Clyde right now, that we are so excited for what he's going to bring to the table, that he's going to let us down. We are projecting this guy through the roof in a Chiefs offense that, yes, has sustained a high-end running back in Kareem Hunt before, but has also had a lot of timeshares since then. They split the ball up a lot since then. They have a DeAndre Washington in town who's a great receiving back as well. I don't know. And Clyde's not a tried and true built between the tackles banger. So I don't know if he's going to be able to even rise to, or to be able to meet the expectations of a running back 6. And so I think that there's a chance, while running back 6 is his ceiling for me in 2021, I think there's a chance that he falls far below where we're expecting him right now, because I think that there's a chance that he doesn't meet our expectations in 2020. So when we're talking about Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's 21 value, I think it's going to be lower than we expect. I think it's going to be lower. I think it's going to be somewhere around running back 8, 9. I think he's going to be right around, the Miles Sanders of the world. I think that's probably who he's going to be right around right there. So running back 8, 9, something like that. So we'll move on to the next question. That's what I think Clyde's value is going to be in 2021 at AMR Gabar. So the last question that we have of the day is from at S.A. Jurgens. All right. At S.A. Jurgens asks, what is the conversion rate of 21 picks to 22 picks? And this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I told you guys, I'm trying to think conceptually about what the value of these 21 picks will be. We've got holdouts, we've got elite NCAA talents that are holding out. We've got teams that aren't even going to play a snap this season. And then we've got teams that are. And we have inferior players that aren't holding out, that are going to have the ability to be able to show out in 2021. So I think that obviously when you're looking at dynasty picks, the later the pick in terms of time-wise, like so 2022 compared to 2021, 2022 picks always have a lesser value unless you're anticipating a great draft class. And I'm not a super well-versed Devy guy here, okay? So I don't know what the 2022 rookie class is going to look like. I do know that 21 has some bangers in it. You know, we've got ETN, Chuba Hubbard, you know, Rashad Bateman, all of those guys. So, I mean, we've got some bangers in the 21 picks. I don't know about the 22 picks, but I do know that historically, the later the pick, the less valuable it becomes. The earlier picks, the earlier year picks are historically more valuable just because of timeliness, you know? So, advantage 21. Then I also know that the more that I think about the 21 picks, the more that I'm thinking that an educated dynasty player, somebody who follows podcasts, that listens to the Triple D FFP, smart guys, you know? And so I'm thinking to myself that they can really make some hay in their drafts in 2021 because some of these inferior players are going to skyrocket and the allure of them is going to be too much for the uneducated player and they're going to pounce on them in the early rounds, leaving you, you know, some tasty morsels in the later rounds. So 21 picks right there seem to have the edge for me as well. So if I were talking about what the conversion rate is, I don't know. I mean, a 21 pick, if you could get value on top of a 21 pick, if you could get like serious value on it. So we're looking at a 21 pick compared to a 22 and somebody said, I want to move into the 21 draft. I have a first round 22 pick, appears to be a mid first round 22 pick for a mid first round 21 pick. I would need, you know, substantial capital to be able to move that. I wouldn't just trade back unless it was advantageous for my team for salary reasons or something like that. If you're in a salary league, I would need something like a second to be able to do that. So the conversion rate is pretty heavy for me. I don't like, you know, postponing the potency of my offense, of my teams, you know? So if we're talking 21 picks to 22 picks, it's going to cost quite a bit to be able to get my 21 picks off me for 22 picks. I think that 21 picks have the timeliness factor. I also think that they have an advantageous, you know, snipe ability is what we'll call it for 21 because of some of these dum-dums that might grab some people a little bit earlier than they should. So, like I said, coming around to the value of 21 picks, I think there's value in acquiring them. I don't see any sense why 22 picks would be any more valuable. So it's going to cost you quite a bit to be able to trade your 22 picks up for 21 picks from me. So that's what I have to say about that at S.A. Jurgens. So, guys, that concludes our trade talk segment. You know, we went through, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot of players, broke it down. You know, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it, and I'm happy that you guys sent me in so many trade questions. It means everything to me that you guys send in trade questions, that you want to hear my opinion on what you guys should do in your league, because I just want to help, man. The most fun part about this is going to be seeing people with championships that took my advice on stuff. I'm stoked about it. I'm so excited. So thank you guys for sending me your trades in. I hope that you liked my advice on it, but if you don't, fuck it, because I'm drunk.